If I think of the issue of student authors, would be undergraduates writing term papers, graduate students writing text for articles and journals and their own theses and dissertations. I mean, I would say almost none of these people have much background at all in typesetting, don't have much of a feeling for how you would handle formatting of complex documents. And even though XML might seem nice from, say, a publisher point of view, because of the high degree of markup that's present, I think if we were to ask students to prepare theses in XML with some suitable backend, we would really have a nightmare of a problem with supporting such writing. We have a big enough problem as it is with the thesis office that has rather strange regulations that seem to keep changing. But even apart from that, I think the issue is that students who've had any experience with computer-based text production have mostly been inside word processors where they haven't learned to divorce the notion of logical markup from visual appearance. And getting them to do that successfully in an XML environment, I think, is even harder than it would be in a pure LaTeX environment.
So do you have students writing text?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I'm the one responsible for the campus thesis styles for both the entire university as well as for our department.
So where it's natural for your students to write text, in DH it's natural for our students to write XML. They're doing it all the time. That's part of their training as digital humanists. So they would probably run a mile from tech, just like your students might run a mile from XML.
Well,
it depends on what you've learned.
To give an example of the unreasonable situations one can run into, we've had theses rejected because the office decided that a sixth of a point in spacing was different from what they wanted, and it had to be redone. And this caused many, many hours of work on the part of the student and me to get the spacing conforming to what they were concerned about. Now, it may be that my university is anomalous, but I suspect many universities do have rather draconian and quaint requirements on how such documents should be formatted.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, it's for somebody like me, it's just as easy to generate very precise outputs in various formats from XML with XSLT as it is for you to do by writing the text and using Zelotech or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I think what we would need to have is a staff of some size at the back end who deals with the conversion of XML to the PDF to meet these strange regulations that we face. And I don't see there being economic support, at least at my institution, for doing that. Even though it's clear that publishers have recognized the value of XML, it seems that all of the large scientific publishers want two things from their suppliers. They want an XML file and they want a PDF file for the journal or book pages. And I recall at one of the tech user group meetings, one of the publishers told us that by having it in this format, they can sometimes resell already prepared material as many as 20 times. Now, if you think about what this means for economics, the production costs have been paid once, and the income comes back 20 times. That's really very good for them. So I can understand their enthusiasm for XML. But here in the trenches in academia, I think I see it a harder thing to introduce to our students.
On this issue of basically going, if students say are used to using a product like Microsoft Word or OpenOffice Writer, where they basically do the content and styling at the same time. When they go to tech, it would seem to me what they're doing is a little different. Now it's marking up the content with the LaTeX tech commands. When you go to XML, it's at least using the XMLmine XML editor. It's what we're calling a structured editor. So you're not really marking up the style at all. You're entering the content. And this is a conceptual paradigm shift. And we tell people that when they go from whatever they're used to using Xling paper with the XML XML editor, that there is a huge learning curve. And it is, because you've got to kind of overcome this mindset. But those that have gone through it, like Hugh Patterson III, who shared the talk the other week, they become converts. It's like, oh, this is wonderful. You know, like, why did I do it the other way before? But they had to overcome that hurdle. And it takes time and experience.
Axel, you want to speak?
I want to repeat something I said about 10 years ago. No one is writing LaTeX anymore because it's too difficult. 10 years ago, I learned Markdown and used Pandoc to create it into different formats. I could write a simple document, create a LaTeX document, and process this to get a good quality PDF. The same program can create different formats like ebook, HTML, some XML formats, but the input format is easy to use for students and it's easy to teach. I think it's almost torture to force someone to write XML without any help. Because it's like writing raw HTML. There are so many things you have to care about. And telling someone, use this, it's better, and they look at it, it's horror. I will never learn this. So there should be an easier way to start creating XML, not writing it in an editor, at least for simple documents. Later, when you have more structure and need more information, you can use the easy created XML and refine that. But asking students to start with XML, writing something in DocBook and process this to a PDF, that's quite difficult. Compared to that, LaTeX is easy.
I may, the XML editor does do DocBook right out of it comes with it. So for these students, you can use the XML editor and you'd be writing XML, but you don't know it because you don't see it. It handles all the details for you. So you might want to look into that and try it out and see what you think. And you mentioned markup. My understanding is that if markup can handle your document, then yes, that's a great way to go because it can produce all those nice outputs. For linguistics, it's nowhere near what's needed. That if it's a simple document, that makes great sense.
Well, my documents are rather simple.
I think this is a difficult problem and there are many ways of tackling it, and they're all appropriate for different people in different circumstances. I think an acceptance of diversity is really important for making progress on this. It's not quite relevant, but I'll say it all the same. In law, civil litigation, it's a general principle that you should state your claim in a language which is acceptable to the other party. So you don't call the other party the conspirators. You simply say, this is what we claim and this is the remedy we wish to have. Well, when we write LaTeX, we're using a language, and we should try to write a LaTeX that is as acceptable as we can manage for the people that like XML. And similarly, if we're dealing with XML, we should try to generate LaTeX that's as acceptable as we can manage for the people that prefer LaTeX. And I view this as, we know that we hope that there's going to be a bridge to be built. Can we get some advantage out of doing some of the preliminary work at our side of the bank before the bridge is built? I'm also very, very much in favor of small projects. You can learn an enormous amount out of a small project. And if we make it easy to do small projects, then perhaps some of them will grow and inspire. So those are my personal views on this. So some sort of LaTeX validator that doesn't convert the thing to XML, but at least tells you that there shouldn't be too many difficulties when you come to do it. And similarly, some sort of general tools that the XML people can use to generate acceptable LaTeX for feeding into the PDF process. That would also help establish the bridge. You know, if you want to build a bridge between two cities, the first thing to do is to build a port at either end of where the bridge is going to go and carry the stuff by boat. Then you can at least build the roads to the bridgeheads, even if you don't have the bridge yet. There's my Tuppence worth of homespun wisdom.